Hello everybody, and welcome back. It's good to talk to all of you again today. And today we're going to talk about HMS Hood coming to World of Warships. Now, do keep in mind that all the stuff that I'm talking about today is data mined data. So it can change, right? This ship has only just made it onto the Supertest server, I believe. So, let's talk about Hood, because while she is historically quite famous and historically quite significant, her in-game version, at least as of the moment, is, well, disappointing. Doesn't begin to cover it. I could say that maybe this is going to be the source of the next big drama, and kind of here's the reasons why. So she's at tier 7. She's going to be a battleship, and right now she does have, I think, like two things going for her. She has a pretty large HP pool, and she's also got pretty good speed. I'll get to the speed bit later. Now, in terms of HP, 67,700, and this is a number that I don't think is going to be changing much, just because Wargaming sort of determines the HP of the ships based on the tonnage of the ship, and that's not really going to change. So I think HP is going to stay the same. Where I do see something potentially changing is maybe like in the repair party, right? So maybe having a special repair party, kind of like the way that the Warships does. Because as of the moment, on the first round of testing, the Hood has a repair party that's pretty standard, healing 339 HP per second. In terms of main guns, the Hood's main guns are, well, the 381mm guns that the British are quite famous for. 8 of them in total. Reload time, 30 seconds. Now, again, out of all the values for guns, this is one that I could see that maybe gets changed. Maybe they'll drop the reload a little bit. Because, again, her gun's not really spectacular, right? Reload, as of the moment, is quite standard. Turret traverse is a bit on the slow side. 60-second turret traverse is not all that fast. A little bit better than the Warspite, but just not all that amazing. AP shell damage is also pretty low, 11,400, especially when you consider the fact that she's going to be running into like Nagatos and Colorados, where those shells do significantly more damage. So her AP shell damage is pretty low. Her shell velocity for the arm-piercing shell, 731.5 meters per second, isn't all that great either. And looking at all these numbers, again, I can see reload maybe being buffed a little bit potentially to make her better, but AP shell damage, I'm not sure that's going to be changing all that much. And initial shell velocity is one of those values that I really don't think will change, just because that's a number that they tend to base on history, and they tend to keep it historical because it has to match up with the penetration formulas and all that stuff. So not seeing the initial shell velocity changing much. One value that can change is the corrupt value. Right now the Hood has a corrupt value of 2,190 on its shells. The Warspite has 2,330. And as of the moment, based on all the numbers, Hood's penetration, I think, is actually worse than the Warspite, just because of that lower corrupt value. Although, I'm not sure about shell drag. So potentially shell drag is a value that maybe swing things more in Hood's favor. Again, not something that I know right now. It's something that I'm speculating. Another thing that's not really in Hood's favor, her max range as of right now, 17.6 kilometers. Let's just round that up. Well, that's like 1 and a little bit kilometers more range than the Warspite. And for a huge ship like her to essentially have to get in gun range of things, oh, I just don't know. I'm like, right now, there's not too many things that I'm looking at with the Hood and going, oh, that's pretty good. So yeah, that's a little bit worrying too. Like, the range isn't that great, her guns aren't all that great right now. Again, please remember, things can change, and it's like, please, Wargaming, change the ship, make her at least decent so people aren't gonna rage at you for destroying one of the icons of British naval history. Actually, oh wait, the Germans already did that. Okay, anyways, moving on. The only, I guess, good thing about Hood right now is her gun arcs. Her gun arcs are pretty good. To get all 4 guns aiming forward, you just have to go 32 degrees. If you want to get the guns, all 4 of them, to go to the back, you got 149 degrees arc there. So it's pretty good. Gun arcs, I think, are not likely, again, to change too much, just because those are things that tend to be modeled based on the ship and everything, and it's just things that are not likely to change. But all in all, a bit worrying there, because the firepower really isn't all that great. And, you know, she's going to be running into ships like the Ganai. She's going to be potentially running into ships like the Bismarck. And they, I think, are really going to eat her for breakfast. So, Hood, at least in terms of firepower, just a little bit on the worrying side. But we'll look at survivability a little bit later on. Moving on a little bit more, and let's take a look at some other things. She does have 5-kilometer secondaries, 7 dual 102mm secondaries, but I don't really think the secondaries are going to be something that you're going to be playing the ship for. She just isn't. She's not like the Ganai, where the secondaries will play a big role, or the Bismarck. Her secondaries are more just like sort of more standard, typical battleship secondaries. And again, it's something that I don't really see changing. Hood doesn't exactly have a great sort of secondary armament in terms of the amount, so it's likely that she's not going to be running that kind of a build, and I don't really think they're going to try to make her into that kind of a build, so I don't really see secondaries changing. The first unique thing about the Hood is her anti-aircraft. Her A is actually very, very mediocre, but she does have access to defensive fire, and so you might be looking at that going, oh, well, great, she's a battleship with defensive fire, and that's going to be her thing. And it's really not, and it has a lot to do with the way that the Hood is in terms of size and in terms of her maneuverability, right? So, you know, she is very fast. She's a 32-knot ship. She goes very, very fast, but she is huge. The Hood is the same length, essentially, as a Yamato. She's actually a bit longer than the Bismarck, a tiny little bit. So she's this huge ship. She's got this humongous turning radius of 910 meters. Her rudder shift is, you know, without the modules or anything, in the 20-second range. So if you combine those factors, that, you know, she's a super long ship with a super large turning radius, it's like the defensive fire really isn't a perk. It's something that is absolutely essential for her to even be balanced and survivable at tier 7 against the carriers. So while she is really, really fast, and that's kind of nice, but again, remember, she is going to be running into Amagis and Bismarcks and Ganais who are not that much slower than her, right? So the speed, like, yes, it's nice for her to be fast, but I mean, it's not like that's, you know, enough to set her apart from all the other stuff that are better than her in pretty much every other regard, right? So yeah, bit worrying to see the early picture of the Hood. I have a feeling they're probably going to buffer here and there, but I'm not all that impressed, let's say, with the initial appearance of the ship. Yeah, just crossing my fingers and hoping that she gets a whole series of buffs that makes her competitive at tier 7 against all the other ships, because honestly, right now, if this is the ship, like in her current state, and they don't change it, she is something that I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. Okay, I'd still probably get it just for collector's purposes, but yeah, I probably wouldn't be playing her all that much. Oh, and one final thing. Let's take a look at her armor as well. Alright, so let's take a look at her armor model as well. So she does have a 305mm sort of main belt armor, and that one pretty much goes a little bit above the waterline, and there's a whole chunk of it under the water. And that's actually roughly where the Citadel is as well, where this green area is. And there is a little bit of a turtleback to it. So, but you know, the turtleback isn't very well angled, and it's not super thick either, only 51mm, I think. So in terms of armor protection, she's alright, I guess. I mean, if you play her right now with a lot of, let's say, angling, you might be okay in terms of bouncing shots off of, you know, that lower belt, or even maybe this upper belt piece. It's 178mm stick. So, you know, if you sort of angle and show that side at a good auto bounce angle, you might be okay in terms of protection. But do keep in mind that she's a tier 7 battleship, which means 25mm of bow armor, which means that, Well, any other battleship at tier 7, 8, or 9 looks at you the wrong way, they're going to overmatch your bow, and that's going to hurt because the Hood's, forward bulkhead armor and everything is just not all that amazing. So a little bit concerning there, I would say. And of course, one last thing, of course, is I did mention the fact that she was a huge battleship, right? Absolutely huge. So I think that when she runs into cruisers, I think they're going to have a field day dropping HE on her. And I think she is going to suffer quite a lot from the burning and the fires and all that stuff. So hopefully, maybe, somewhere in Wargaming's balancing department, they realize that right now she's just terrible. And they're maybe going to fix her up a little bit more. Maybe improve repair kit, improve damage control, maybe, who knows. But yeah, all in all, in her current iteration, yeah, take a look. I mean, that's the forward bulkhead armor too. It's like 102 millimeters thick after the bow. It's like, oh, that's not very good. Anyways, just hoping that, we are able to look at the Hood in its super early form. Again, a lot of changes can still happen. And hope that Wargaming doesn't screw this one up and doesn't create another drama over this particular ship. And hopefully when she does finally get to our hands so that we can test, that we have a pretty well balanced ship to play with. Because if they don't get it right, this is what I think is probably becoming. So anyways, folks, let me know what you think. Aside from all that, have a good one, take care, and I'll talk to all of you again really, really soon.